Today I am upgrading the guest room closet at my mom's condo. Hey guys, how's it going? Before we start this off, let's take a look at the SketchUp plan I made so you can see what my goal is at the end of the day. The build is broken out into 4 different sections: the bookshelf, the 3 hangers, the divider, and then the top shelf. All of the separate components are fairly simple builds. The big shelf and the dividers are all individual pieces. The 3 hangers were really only an issue to figure out how to transport them without breaking, but I'll go over that later. And then there's the bookshelf portion, but there will be a separate video on that next week since this was more of a detailed build. If you are watching this in the future, you can check out the bookshelf video up here. So now that you can see what I'm doing, let's get into the work. I started off with building the 3 hangers where I took a half sheet of MDF that I had ripped in half at the store to make it easier to handle, and ripped them in half again at the table saw, and then ripped them into 6-inch strips. Then I take the strips over to the miter saw and start cutting them to length. These will be the sides and backs of the hangers. Then it's off to assembly, where I fasten the sides to the backer with screws. This one, as you may or may not be able to tell, is a little bit lopsided. This is the corner unit, and the one side is the full 2-foot width of the top shelf, where the other arm and the 2 other hangers, which don't exist yet, are limited to the distance between the wall and the closet doorway, which you will see later on. Once I have the frames for the hangers built, I start marking out the hole locations for the dowels on the frames. I decided to wait until after the frame was built to mark out the dowel holes, since that way I would have a consistent measurement, especially with the 2-foot arm throwing me off. And since there was enough space for me to work in, I wasn't concerned about that being an issue. Once I have the hole marked out a foot away from the back of the hanger, I punch a hole down with the center punch to keep the drill from wandering. Then with the 35mm Forstner bit, I drill down approximately ½ an inch onto both arms of the frame. Now, since the arms have a little flex to them yet, I get the 1 1/4 inch dowel cut to size at the miter saw and bend the arms to fit them back into the hole. The reflex action of the MDF will hold the dowel loosely into place. This was repeated a couple more times for the total 3 hanger units. It looks like I didn't record it, but I'll show you later on what I did to secure the hangers for transport. Next up is the divider, which was simple. I cut it to width on the table saw and then cut it to length with a circular saw and a straight edge. Then it was the top shelf, which really was the same thing, just wider, but then I cut off the corner. This is to cover the transition between the closet door and the full width of the shelf. And then the shelf for the mid-level hanger, which, same thing, cut to length with the circular saw and cut to width at the table saw. The last thing to cut up is a bunch of trim pieces, where I just ripped down some scraps to 1.5 inches wide. And here is everything to load up. Here you can see what I've done to the hangers for transport. I just fastened an MDF scrap along the unsecured edge of the hangers to keep everything in place. Also made things easier to carry since I didn't have to worry about the dowel popping out and dropping and breaking things. Over at the condo now, I break out my $2 pack of stud finders, which are actually just small rare earth magnets. I just slide them along the wall until they stick. Typically that's a drywall screw, which typically means a stud. I've done this a few times now, and unless someone missed the stud originally, it's worked out pretty much every time. Once I know the stud locations, I mark them out with my level. Yep.
Oh my god.
You're standing right in front of the camera.
Hi.
That's right where I'm going to be going next. Get out of my way! With the studs marked out, I grabbed the first half-height hanger, and with my brother giving me a hand, literally, I countersink and screw in the hanger into the studs, making sure that it's actually level before I tighten it down. Before I can get the next hangers fastened, I need to get the divider up first. So we get it into place and mark out both the baseboard to cut out and the divider to notch out the corner, since at this point we hadn't decided which way to go. After a quick discussion, we decided to notch out the divider, which I cut out with the oscillating saw. Then the divider is popped back into place, plumbed up, and the hanger is leveled up. And then the hanger is countersunk and screwed into the divider. The top 2 hangers are installed the same way. This corner unit was a little bit of a pain since the back was a bit tight. I probably could have forced it in, but I wouldn't have been able to get it back out without destroying it if it was in the wrong spot. Unfortunately, I also didn't have the proper tools to deal with the extra width, which was really only a 1/16 inch or so. So I swiped my mom's sander and sanded it down until it fit. It took a little bit longer than I would have liked, but it got there eventually with a little bit of extra persuasion. Now that the skeleton is installed, it's time to install the shelves. The middle one is dropped in place and secured with brad nails. Then the top one is just dropped in place. We didn't bother securing this one down though, just in case. It's heavy enough that it's not going to move on its own. And case in point, when we moved the bookshelf into place, we had to lift it up out of the way to get the bookshelf into place. I'll go into more detail on the bookshelf installation in next week's video. The last thing to do is install the trim pieces. I did bring my miter saw with me, so I stayed inside and measured the trim and sent my brother out to cut the pieces to length. Then while he was working on getting the next piece cut, I could get the piece he just cut and fasten it in with brad nails. Then, after a little bit of cleanup, my part in this project is done. Just like in the pantry storage I did for her a couple weeks ago, if you missed that video you can check it out up here. Mom took care of sealing up the screw holes with plaster and painting since she was going to be repainting anyway. So overall this was a pretty quick turnaround, and I think in total I spent about 3 days on this. 2 days construction and 1 day installation, and overall it went fairly well. Not too bad for a long weekend of work. And with that I'm going to call it a video, so thank you all for watching, and if you like what I'm doing here, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more. If you have any questions or comments, I look forward to reading them in the comment section below. And if you want to see more up-to-date projects, you can follow me on Instagram at John the Schreiner. Otherwise, I hope to see you in the next video, and have a good one.